Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Finance Series. We're your hosts, Josiah and Kelly Nagel. We'll be releasing a new episode every Tuesday and Thursday throughout January 2021. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Finance Series, Episode 1. We're kicking it off today talking about why finances are important. This whole series is a series of financial topics, things that we've discovered and learned over the past few years and that we've implemented in our own lives and that have made a big difference for us in our relationships, in our goals, and in our day-to-day life. The big thing about finances is it comes down to discipline and self-control. For many people, money can control you.
For sure.
And what I mean by that is there's not a little dollar bill in your pocket and you're like a little puppet. That'd be pretty funny. But money controls you in that you can't do what you want because you have to do certain things or you're locked in a box because of money. Whether it's your job, whether it's your bills you have to pay, whether it's the debt payments, your mortgage, et cetera, the more and more of that you have, the less and less freedom you have.
Right.
So to start out, we're going to talk about the behavior aspect of it. Many people think that if they just had $1 million, if they just won the lottery, their life would be so different. All their problems could be solved. They could get that yacht. They could pay off their debt.
Right.
They could get those Yeezys.
Even just like some basic things like, oh, well, I would have this, that, and the other, and my life would be just set forever. I wouldn't have to worry about anything. And that's not necessarily true.
We got news for you. You're wrong. We looked up a few different studies, did some research.
Yeah.
Kelly, share what we found.
Yeah. So first, you know that thing that goes around, the like Florida man? Well, sadly, it's kind of true. So lottery winners in Florida were studied. And in this study, they found that 70% of them had spent every last dime of their jackpot within 5 years of winning. Like,
so you win $1 million.
Yeah.
You spend 150, 200 grand a year on what?
I don't know. Could be anything. Plethora of things.
Not their future.
So it wasn't, even within the study, it wasn't always just million dollar winners. It was even just like $150,000.
Okay.
$200,000, but all the way up to big jackpots, like huge jackpots.
Regardless of the dollar amount.
Right. Regardless of the dollar amount, 70% of them had spent every last dime of their jackpot within 5 years of winning.
So what you see here is they won the lottery. They had the chance of an extreme change of lifestyle.
Correct.
And they did that. They acted on it. But 5 years later, they were back to where they were. Let's talk about NFL players. Many assume that if you make it to the big leagues, you get that big contract. Even though you can only play for a couple years, you could make millions per year.
Sure.
Many assume that if you make it there, you're set for life. For life. Few athletes actually see that level of wealth. And many that do only experience it for a short time. Kind of similar to the lottery winners.
Sure.
Within a few years, it's all gone.
Wow.
The average NFL career only lasts 4 seasons. 4 seasons.
Wow.
The average NFL salary was $2.7 million in 2017. That's a lot of money. That is a bit inflated by some of the really high-end players and their salaries. In 2009, Sports Illustrated estimated that 78% of NFL players 78% of NFL players go broke, completely broke within 2 years of their career ending. I think what we have here is many young athletes all of a sudden getting a large amount of wealth and not knowing what to do with it behavior-wise. They end up spending it all, making foolish investments or other mistakes, not thinking about the long term. Maybe not thinking about they might only have one more season. They could get a big injury.
Right. That's
that career field
Yeah.
is very performance-driven. You're not promised seasons and seasons and seasons like some players are able to get.
Right.
So we have a very specific example of Warren Sapp Talk a little bit about him, Kelly.
If you're not sure who he is, honestly, I wasn't quite sure who he was. Not super into NFL and football, but he's a Hall of Fame, and he had a Hall of Fame NFL career, and he ended up having a cushy 7-year broadcasting gig with the NFL Network. But sadly, shortly after, he declared bankruptcy in 2012, so it's somewhat more recent, and literally had his possessions auctioned off. Could you even imagine? People like had to go through your house and like auction off your stuff. Ooh, that's a tough one. Some of them I found interesting. One ended up being a lion skin rug, but that was kind of an interesting one.
I missed that auction.
He had a lot of wealth. He had a $4.1 million home. It only sold for $2.1 million, and that was also in regards to the auction. But man, he ended up signing, so total, his whole wealth that he ended up having contract-wise was $36 million worth of contracts over the course of his career. That is an insane amount of money. And you think, wow, he only had a $4.1 million home? Oh, that's like pretty reasonable.
Yeah,
but
well, he had several, I believe two
right.
$36 million contracts. So that's $72 million.
Right. So, wow, that's a lot. And he was like, oh, okay. He was like frugal. He didn't get like the $36 million home. He only got like 4.1. Here's the problem though. He had $6.45 million worth of assets. So that would be something that retains its value, like home, like property itself, like land value, so on and so forth. There's plenty of assets you could have. But he had $6.7 million in debt. Okay, so let's rewind a little. $6.45 million in assets and $6.7 million in debt. There you go. Like, there's all his money. It's gone. You owe it all to somebody else, the bank, whoever he got the loan from. He had just over $800 in a checking account when he declared bankruptcy, and he had just over $300 in a savings account. How sad. With a behavior problem like that, in your finances of just lack of self-control, lack of discipline, you end up just spending it all and going into debt over things that ultimately you could control with a little bit of self-control.
That's right. He had the opportunity of a lifetime, and because of poor behavior and poor discipline, he lost it all. Charles Spurgeon once said, if you're not content with what you have, you would not be satisfied if it were doubled.
That's a good one.
So when you take responsibility for your actions and you're disciplined and have a plan, you ultimately have more freedom. And that's the purpose of this finance series. We're trying to share what has worked for us and what has allowed us to take responsibility of our personal finances and how we now have more freedom. And hopefully will continue to for many years. Finances also impact every aspect of your life.
Yes.
Right?
It's very true.
Let's start with relationships. How can finances impact your relationships, specifically your marriage?
Sure. So you would think normally in a relationship, marriage is the ultimate relationship, right? Amongst your friends, amongst anybody else, your acquaintances, your coworkers, your marriage should be the ultimate relationship, the closest one. Well, sadly, finances can affect that in many ways, but obviously it can affect your rate of divorce. So sadly, the number one cause of divorce based off of Dave Ramsey's website in America is money fights and money problems. Marriage counselors recommend if you agree on the 4 things I'm about to list, your marriage will have a higher probability of success. So those things are money, religion, kids, and in-laws. Now, this isn't to say like people only get divorced because of money fights or only have money issues in their marriage. Obviously not. But what we're saying is if you don't have self-control and discipline over your finances, it will affect your ultimately closest relationship you'll ever have, which is your spouse.
It goes on into your relationships with friends as well.
Right.
Oftentimes, spending time with friends, whether it's entertainment, eating out, going on trips, there's a dollar associated with being able to participate in that.
Sure.
And not that money equals friendship or money can buy you friends, but if you don't have a handle of your finances and plan when and where to use your money,
Sure.
You can miss out on opportunities, and it can impact relationships, and you'll miss out on memories. We spend money every day, I would argue. Whether or not you're shopping for groceries, shopping online, buying clothing, whatever it might be, you might not do that every day. But if you're paying rent, or you have a mortgage, or you have utilities, or insurance, there's a daily cost associated with those things. You might only pay $1,000 once a month for your rent, but that really breaks down to $30-something per day.
Right.
So money is associated with every day of your life, whether or not you want it to be. And most adults and teens, 95 to 96%, admit that they participate in some form of retail therapy.
Yikes.
And we've done it before too. Even though outlets for leaving the house and doing activities were removed, we couldn't do a lot of the things we normally did. We often found ourselves roaming the grocery store for no reason.
Weird.
We didn't need food. We just wanted to get out and do something.
Right. Reasonably so.
It was a form of retail therapy. And whether or not we needed groceries, if you go to the grocery store, you're going to spend money.
Ooh, and you happen to go when you're hungry. That doesn't help.
Oof, that can be devastating.
Right.
Let's talk about retirement. According to CNBC, almost a quarter of adults in the U.S. have no retirement savings or no pension.
Yikes.
And just 36% of non-retired adults think that their retirement account is on track. Those are scary numbers, especially when the government's plan, Social Security, whether or not it'll be around when you're ready to retire, is not enough to live on. You need to have a plan for yourself.
Sure. Most definitely.
Whether it's a pension, a 401k, another personal retirement savings, or investment strategy.
So saving your money is a big deal. And so having an emergency fund is essential. In the year of 2020 that just passed, I'm sure plenty of people realized that very quickly. Even something as simple as a tire going flat or your water heater bursting. Like, what happens that's an emergency scenario, right? You need to fix those. But sadly, also from CNBC, they found that 1/3 of middle-class adults in America can't afford to cover a $400 emergency. That's a pretty low number. So you can't even cover like a $400 emergency. And that's just 1/3 of middle class adults. A quote from DaveRamsey.com, 50% of Americans have less than 1 month of their income saved for a rainy day. So any sort of like an emergency. We did the math for you. So we found that the average per month that Americans make is about $5,500. That can get spent like this, I'm sure. We've had emergencies that pop up, and sadly, they ended up being several $1,000s. Others are only a couple hundred. But, emergencies happen, and you got to be prepared for those. Even something as simple as saving for a vacation, car, house, or another big purchase, that's a big deal too. Those things don't normally just pop out of nowhere. Oh, randomly, I need a car today. People, if they don't have an emergency savings, you likely won't have a savings for that car, that house for later. You need to have a short-term or long-term savings for any of these items, for even in something as simple as maintenance.
So if you have good discipline, a good plan, and personal responsibility to control your finances, it opens up lots of opportunities. You have freedoms in what you can do, such as the opportunity to help others. You can give your money to organizations. You can give your money to those in need. The purpose of this series is for us to share our knowledge so that we can help you gain better self-control, discipline, and responsibility of your own money, and not let your money control you. So whether or not you have a good grasp of your finances, we hope that you'll learn something and take a look at our personal strategy and personal plan that's helped us over the years. Some of the following episodes, we'll be talking about budgeting. We'll be talking about debt and our thoughts on that, including credit cards, car loans, mortgages. We'll be talking about savings, what things to save for, how to have saving strategies. We'll be talking about spending, giving, and then also investing. So thanks for tuning in to this intro episode. We look forward to you seeing our future episodes and sharing our financial journey with you.